So you want to run away with a U.S. Merchant Marine and maybe pursue an adventure life on a tugboat. Well, might be a little bit more complicated than that. Stick around and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so it's my 2 weeks off and I'm enjoying my time in the beautiful west coast of Puerto Rico. Background you can see El Faro, the lighthouse. But anyway, why would you want to get into the work with a tugboat company? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. The pay is pretty good, but the big thing, and the thing that I don't think a lot of people really consider, is the time off. I don't know of any other industry where you can work a full-time job and have 6 months off of vacation. Pretty awesome. A lot of us that get into this industry like the money, but realize we can get the money doing any kind of job, but we'll never find any occupation that has that kind of time off. So why wouldn't you want to do it? Well, there are some problems. I try to encourage people to really look at themselves and find out, are you somebody that can get along with a lot of different people from different areas and different beliefs and even look differently than you do, especially on a very small, say, 95-foot steel island for extended periods of time. If you're somebody that has a history of not playing well with others or getting into arguments or being abrasive or whatever, the problem with that is most people that are like that don't see themselves like that. But if you have any of those tendencies or you have any of that, you're probably not going to be a good fit for this line of work. Some people have issues at home. If you have a wife or a girlfriend or husband or boyfriend, if you have any sort of problems like that, believe me, going away for 2 weeks at a time doesn't help things out. And just to make things very clear, everyone blames that on the old stories of sailors having girlfriends in every port. Without exception, I can tell you that in my entire career, it's almost always been the other way around. I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying it's not what people think. Alright, so yeah, you have to be able to be away, you have to be able to live in a confined space with other people. You also have to kind of give up your schedule as far as, if you have young kids and you want to be home for Christmas, you got a 50-50 chance you're going to be home this year for Christmas. You know, if you have to be home for your wedding anniversary or whatever, dude, you gotta let those days go. And if you can't let those days go, this might not be a good fit for you either. But there are plenty of other good reasons why you should get into this. Some people want to know what it takes to do this. So there are some things that you need to do. It helps if you have a clean record. I used to say you'd have to have a perfectly clean criminal, you know, no criminal record at all. However, apparently, I'm starting to see that there are some people that have done some things in the past and paid their penance, and over time were able to get through all that. All I'm saying is that there's a lot more hoops that you have to jump through if you have any sort of criminal background or criminal history. Let's see, there's some other things. Wind's blowing here. I have no idea how it's going to sound on the mic, but anyway, hopefully. Nice to have a little break from the heat. Anyway, let's see. You're also going to need to be relatively physically fit. And that's kind of funny because if you look at a lot of tugboatmen, a lot of guys that have been on tugboats for a while aren't exactly the pinnacle of health. But that's another topic for another video, another day. But when you get in, there's some things that you have to do. You have to go through a Coast Guard physical, and I think basically what they're really looking for is to make sure that nobody has an issue that they're going to need immediate medical attention if they're offshore and they can't get off. Obviously, if you have heart disease and you're probably going to get, and if you have a problem, you're probably going to get taken care of much better at a land-based job than you would be if you're on a tugboat or any sort of ship offshore, or even in the harbor for that matter. Things get all kinds of difficult that way. So anyway, to go over the paperwork that's involved, you need something called a TWIC card. A TWIC card is a Transportation Workers Identification Credential, and it's basically something that the Homeland Security people have put together. Goodness, I'm going to sneeze here in a second. Anyway, so they fingerprint you, they run a background check on you, and they just make sure that you're not going to be somebody that they don't want to be around things that you shouldn't be around. So in other words, if you're somebody that might be a menace to society, we don't think that putting you on a barge with 2.5 million gallons of gasoline would probably be the best idea. So that's probably why they do that. Anyway, I'm going to try to put links in the description down below on how to get all these different things. You know, like where you can go and find out where to get your applications and that sort of thing. Then there's the MMC. MMC is back in the day we used to call it the Z card. Now it's the Merchant Mariner Credential, which is basically a red passport. It looks just like a passport, but it's red, and it's something for all seafarers they try to make it uniform so it doesn't matter what country you're from, it all works the same way. To get one of these, you have to apply to the Coast Guard. You need a Coast Guard physical and a Coast Guard drug test. I say a Coast Guard drug test, a physical and a drug test that are approved by the Coast Guard. And then you fill out everything and you send it in, and hopefully after that you'll get something back. So after you've got your TWIC card, after you get your MMC, you've got your health card through your Coast Guard physical, and you've got your Coast Guard approved drug test. The next thing that you're going to do is start applying to companies. Years ago it was very difficult to get in, especially in New York. You almost had to know somebody or be a part of a family. I like to think those days are over. It's much easier today. I don't mean easier, it's just that there's more access. And that's something that benefits a lot of people, and it also brings in a lot of new talent and a new mindsets to our industry, which has been both positive and negative. Anyway, once that happens, you come on board, and the entry-level position is usually... Oh, by the way, I should back up and say there's two traditional routes to advancement. One of them is to go to a maritime school. If you're young, you're getting out of high school, you're getting out of the military, going to a maritime school makes so much sense. In 4 years, and the money that you pay for the school is going to be infinitely less than it costs for people like me who have gone the other route, which I'll talk about in a second, to get all the credentials that you need and all the certifications and added things, pieces to your license. The other way is what we call the hawse pipe. Now the hawse pipe is that tube on a ship that the chain goes through to the anchor. And so in old-time sailing ships they used to say, how'd you get in the wheelhouse? Well, I came up through the hawse pipe. And so what that means is that they start at the bottom, they work their way up. Unfortunately, knuckle draggers like me, that's how I did it. And it's becoming harder and harder to do that, only because there's more and more things that these certifications, credentials, and endorsements that you get on your license that the schools take care of for you if you go to maritime school. Now, having said that, coming up through the hawse pipe, all that means is that I've had to go to school, and instead of going for 4 years, I've done 2 weeks here, 3 weeks here, another week there, and many parts of our licenses we have to go and renew every 5 years. So that's all things that you have to do. Once you get in, the entry-level position is going to be what we call an OS, and that's for ordinary seaman. And an OS can start off with literally 0 sea time. After, I think it's like 720 days, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's about 720 days they can apply for their AB after they go through some schooling, some firefighting and that sort of stuff. And when that happens, they become an able-bodied seaman. That's the next step. So after you started, if you're coming up through the hawse pipe and you're not going to a maritime school, the maritime guys, they come out with either a degree in marine engineering or a degree in marine transportation, and that also includes a third mate's unlimited license. And so they come out with a lot of credentials. But if you come up with a less than traditional way these days, like I did, you start off on deck as an OS, you work your way up to an AB, and then after that you have to decide. There's a couple different paths you can go. If you want money, the fastest way to make more money is to go and be a tankerman. And that's where you go and you're in charge of handling the loading and discharging of cargo on the barges that we move. Those guys can, there's still credentials and endorsements that they need to get before they can do that job, but it's relatively quick. And I say relatively quick as opposed to becoming a captain or something like that. Then another option is to go into the engine room. And people that go into the engine room, they usually start off, and you know, as they're working as an AB or an OS, they're going and they're following the engineer, and they're figuring out how to ballast the boat by moving fuel around and how to fix different things and that sort of stuff. So the engineer, and then once that happens, they have to go to school, and they have to take, I think the minimum for our company is going to be a DDE 4000, a designated duty engineer on a 4,000 horsepower or less vessel. Or you can continue to study, and with more time you can come and get your chief's license, and then that's just a bigger thing for that. The other one is that you can go towards the wheelhouse, and what you would do is you would study and you'd take your test to try to become to get your captain's license. You don't become a captain just like that, but once you get the license, and then there's some towing endorsements that you need, and this all happens over years of time. But then what you can do is, if you're lucky, you can become an apprentice mate or a mate trainee, and that's when we teach you what to do, and usually have about 3 or 4 hitches to figure it all out. Hopefully, if you had paid attention on your years on working on the deck, hopefully you'll know what to do and everything makes sense. It's kind of funny. It seems as though the people that I train, there are some people that pick it up just like that, and other people that just don't seem to get it as much. And I don't think it has anything to do with their level of intelligence. I think it's just that some people really utilize their time on deck. While they were on deck, they're saying, why is he having me do this? Why does it do it this way? Why does it make sense to do it this way as opposed to another way? And then when they get up in the wheelhouse, then they have all that information and they're ready to go. So a lot of guys will say to me, oh, how long do I have to deck for before I do this? Dude, the longer you deck, the better you're going to be in the wheelhouse. That is, I don't think there's going to be a tugboatman on the planet that will ever argue that with me. There's a lot of guys that come out of the maritime school with these huge, my mate right now he was from Cal Maritime, and he has a huge license. I'll never even approach the scope of license that he has in my career. And that's fine, I'm happy with that, and he's young and I'm old. But anyway, having said all that, what he has in license, he is starting to gain over time in experience. And it's kind of a funny industry in that a lot of people will tote their credentials and what they have for licenses and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is how well they do the job, and that usually falls back to how many times they've done it or the experience you have. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, this video's getting kind of long. Let me try to shorten this up a little bit. Oh wait, there's one thing that I really wanted to get in here, and that's that there's an age-old argument of people that say, oh, you know what, it's a good life, but it's really hard to raise a family and really tough when you have kids. Well, you know what, I really have a lot of issue with this, because I've heard this a lot, and I'm probably going to not make a lot of friends saying this, but I'm trying to be completely honest and forthcoming with you. I think if you're a good parent, it doesn't really matter where you work, when you're around. If you're a good parent, you're a good parent. And that doesn't just mean saying that you're a good parent. I think the inverse is true too. I think if your kids didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, that's probably not your kid's fault, that's probably how they were raised. And if you look back and you say, oh, it's because I was out to sea all the time, I don't think that's the case. I really think that if you're not the greatest parent when you're on a boat, you probably wouldn't be the greatest parent if you were working on the beach too. So I really don't buy that. I can also tell you that having the time off that I have in my career has given me opportunities that I never would have had with a shore-based job. So in other words, when my kids were in school and they'd have field trips and stuff like that, I'd be the only dude there. It'd be me and a bunch of mothers that were taking care of the kids and that sort of stuff, that were the chaperones. I didn't get to go to all the practices, but I was able to go to half of them. And most guys, if you're working 9 to 5, you can't do that, you know. So, and then having 6 months off a year also gives you time to go and explore the world, to go traveling, to spend time with your children. So this notion that, oh, it's really tough on a family, it's hard to point fingers, but I really think that that's just a really lame excuse from somebody that probably wasn't going to be a committed father that way anyway. So if this is something you want to do and you have kids, I think it's going to be a real benefit. It's not going to be something that's going to hurt. And in fact, if you talk to my kids, they'll tell you that it's great. They love it. That, you know, I mean, they're older now, but anyway, that's that. So to wrap this up, if you want to get into this career, there's a bunch of reasons why you should. Oh, you know what? I didn't talk about money. And these are just broad brushstroke ideas, so don't hold me to any of this. But from what I know from the area that I work and the companies that I've worked for, OSs usually start for 6 months equal time at around $50,000–$55,000 a year plus full benefits. And remember, that's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So if you pick up another week, you get time and a half for all that, and so that's even more. And that's not a bad salary for somebody that doesn't have anything other than, you know, a high school education. You don't have any credentials, you don't have a license, you don't have a college degree. So I think that's pretty good. I mean, there are a lot of people with $200,000 or $300,000 of debt that are getting out of college and don't start off like that. And of course, you're going to have full benefits and all that sort of stuff. Then the next thing is you go to an AB, you're going to make a little bit more money. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that equal time tankermen make somewhere between $60,000 and $90,000 a year. Mate engineers, I think, make between $90,000 and $120,000. Mates about in the same area, and then captains a little bit more than that. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the money stands with all this. And like I say, I really don't think that money should be the driving force of why anybody gets into this line of work, because at the end of the day, it's still a job. You still got to go away, and when the phone rings or you get the call saying that the water pipe is broken in the basement, there's nothing you can do about it when you're out to sea. So that's something that you got to live with. Not everyone can do that. A lot of people come into this business, and a lot of people leave it because it turns out it wasn't what they expected. For me, it's the greatest job on earth. I can tell you that I love my job. Hopefully that's evident in the videos that I make, but it's not hard going to work every 2 weeks when you're looking forward to it. You're looking forward to seeing your buddies on the boat, and I'm looking forward to doing the work, and it's fun. I enjoy the work, and if you can find that in this line of work, God bless you. Welcome to the club. It's awesome. If you're somebody that needs to be in phone contact with your sweetheart every night, maybe not the best line of work for you. Anyway, you figure it out. Like I say, I'll try to put links to how to get your TWIC card, how to get your MMC, and that sort of stuff down below. And oddly enough, I really think that there's anyone who's looking to start, I would say that the industry is riper today than it's ever been in my career. In other words, it's easier for people to get in now than it has ever been since I've been out here. So, welcome aboard. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing. My channel's been having a lot of fun with my channel, and really thank you guys for hanging in there. Alright, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Trying to get through here, but getting a little tight. Take my life into my hands walking on the Puerto Rican roads. But anyway, so one of my buddies is yelling at me right now.